What's up, scholars? We are back for another video. Today we are going to be talking about Zou. Oh my gosh. This arc was so small. There was like 20 something chapters in this arc, but it was so dense and was so full of just incredible storytelling and an amazing reveal and twist. You had amazing character moments, a lot of foreshadowing, and just a lot of world building. This arc blew my mind with just how much it contained and just how much was put into this one little arc. And oh my goodness, Oda was showing off. He was boasting his writing skills in this arc, and I am so glad he did. But also, I'm not okay after this arc. Sanji, I'm 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 so worried. I'm not okay with our boy being gone like this, with my boy being gone like this. That being said, there's a lot I want to talk about. I have a lot of theories about some of the information we gained, so I just want to get into it. So Zou starts with our group trying to climb up the elephant, trying to find a way up to the top to where the actual civilization island town is. And little Conjuro has to summon this, or like paint this dragon. The dragon is so adorable, and I love on the way up there's so much trouble. The samurai actually, they all fall off, which is funny because, you know, they fall off because of plot, because they aren't needed until later in the story, until we find out all of this other stuff that's happened. But the samurai fall off, causes problems, and our group goes up, and this dragon is trying so hard. And I love Robin. Robin's response to this whole dragon is so cute because she thinks it's adorable and is getting so emotionally invested in this little dragon. It's so funny. But they finally make it to the top with all those shenanigans. They get to the top and they run into these minks. And oh my gosh, we've seen animals that speak and interact so much throughout One Piece that I hadn't really given it a second thought. I just, you know, associated it with being part of the One Piece world. Oda made them so important to the story, to the world building, to everything that I was not expecting it. These minks seem to be against the Straw Hats. They're rounding them up, but it turns out that they are on our side. That because Luffy and them didn't ring the bell, they thought they were intruders, but they weren't. So they were trying to round them up. Once they recognized that it was the Straw Hats, they're like, "Oh, okay, we're gonna take you somewhere." Robin notices that the town had recently showed signs of recently being destroyed within the past 2 weeks, and she takes note of that. The minks end up being super friendly, unlike the rumors about them being like these man-eaters, which again, Robin thinking that they're like, oh, well, what if they eat people? And Usopp's reaction to her is always so funny. I love their dynamic. Of course, they're not eating people. They're actually super, 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 super friendly. A little overly friendly. And they actually take them to the rest of the group, Nami's group, and they get reunited, and that is when Nami breaks down and tells us that Sanji is gone. Now, this story has two major flashbacks in it, two major stories within a story that kind of encapsulates what Zou is and sets up both the future and brings us up to speed of the past, and it kind of does a good job of rounding up where everything's at and how everything has fallen into place as it is. Both of these flashbacks hurt for two very different reasons. I'm trying to remember it the best I can. I read this arc when I was sick, so I've had to go back and revisit some of it just to make sure I was remembering everything clearly. I'm feeling better, by the way. My throat's still a little scratchy, so, but for the most part, I'm much better now. Doing much better. Nami fills everybody in on how they escaped to Big Mom. They kind of destroyed part of their ship, and Nami used her little weather ball so that they could escape and get to the island. And as she's explaining how they got to the island and what was leading up to them getting there, we get Law meeting back up with his crew, and how Beppo hugs him in that one panel is just so adorable. Because because Law is such a big softie, even though he doesn't act like a softie. And seeing this giant polar bear that is also a mink, seeing this giant polar bear just go up and like squish him in a hug, and he's just like, "Yep, this is happening," is so funny to me. Law is such a softie. He's such a softie, and I love Law. It's a little side rant, but Law is so funny because he's still childish to a certain degree, but he tries to act a lot more mature. But that maturity just like is stripped away whenever he's around the Straw Hats, particularly Luffy. And it's like his childish side that he never got to have when he was an actual child because of his history with Doflamingo, and then his sickness, and then what happened with Corazon. Everything there. He never really got to have a childhood, and it's like so funny to see like the childish part of him coming out when he's around Luffy, or when he's around his crew, like Beppo, like how he interacts with Beppo. It's so cute and it's so adorable, but he still acts like he's just like this big, tough, serious person, and it's just so funny to me. I love Law so much. He's so great. Anyways, Law is over there doing that. We get the hint of the tragedy that has happened on Zou regarding the minks, and that's when Wanda gets the news that Dogstorm, one of the two protectors of the island, is awake. When we meet Dogstorm, that is where we get the backstory about Zou and what happened on that island to cause that much destruction. It was so just brutally horrific to read that this guy, Jack, which is such a plain name for someone with a billion berry bounty on his head, and it's Jack. But Jack is I guess he's a Zoan, I would think. I always forget the types of devil fruits that there are. I remember Zoan just because we see some Zoans like Chopper that really stick out, and the animals that stick out more, and like I remember Zoan because of the shape shifting and everything, so that's what like kind of like sticks out to me the most. I know there's Logia, Paramithia, I think, something like that. I think those are the only 3 types of devil fruits. I get them all confused, and I always forget which types of devil fruit people have. I think I have a lot of questions about Luffy right now, and either his devil fruit, his history, like ancestry, his hockey, the will of. I have a lot of questions about Luffy, but I'm not there yet. Anyway, Jack is a devil fruit user who can turn into this like mammoth, and he's part of Kaido's crew. He comes in search of Raizo, this samurai who is rumored to be on Zou, and the minks are just adamant, saying like, we don't know who this person is, we don't know a Raizo, he's not here. Please, like, we can't give you another answer other than that because we don't know. But Jack doesn't care. He doesn't care if they keep telling him no. He just goes on this brutal rampage, desecrates this town and all of the people in it. Even though they're saying they have no idea who this person is, they don't know a Raizo, they don't know any samurai, and they're suffering. They are going through all of this suffering for no reason, no apparent reason, because they don't know Raizo. They don't know this person that Jack is after, and they are being tortured and crucified and just put through the most brutal experiences. And then on top of that, you have Caesar's gas weapon that gets released and incapacitates a lot of them. And then that makes Jack's crew go on an even another rampage and just starts killing everybody, asking the same question over and over: where is Rizzo? Where is Rizzo? And they are crying and just begging them to stop the senseless violence, because they're like, we don't know. We don't know Rizzo. He's not here. We can't tell you anything else because he's not here. The only reason that Jack ends up leaving is because of the news that Luffy has beaten Doflamingo, and he goes out in search of Luffy to get his vengeance. And because he left, the minks were able to try to recover, and that is when Sanji and Nami's group, I'm calling it Sanji's group right now, that's when Sanji's group arrives and they see all this devastation, and there's remnants of Jack's crew there, and they end up wiping them all out. That's the tidbit we saw back from Dressrosa, and that kind of chaotic bit that we got hints of on Sanji's crew, on Sanji's group. We get to see the fulfillment of that in Zou, that they ended up destroying all of these other members of Jack's crew to help the minks, and then Chopper and Nami and Sanji and Brook, they all agree to start helping, and they're all cleaning up, and Chopper, being the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful doctor that he is helping all of the minks recover. He is treating them. Nami is reassuring Wanda that not a single one of them is going to get left behind. And that's when we get out of that flashback to almost get us caught up to the present. That kind of catches us up on the situation with Zou and the minks and everything that has happened with them. And by golly, I did not expect to love the minks as much as I do because of what happens later. I'm just amazed at them, honestly, and just like, it seems like a sudden introduction to them, but it's really not, because we've had these characters just all throughout the story of One Piece, just like mixed in seamlessly, and then we get their full history and their backstory and their origins, and just it's just incredible. I love them. That's when we get news that Cat Viper, the other protector guardian of this island, is awake. They were both Cat Viper and Dogstorm were both very heavily injured. They actually lost limbs being crucified, saying that they didn't know Rizzo. They didn't know who he was, that he wasn't there. They went that far. But the crew is on their way to go see Cat Viper because of Cat Viper and Dogstorm's whole rivalry and how they don't really get along anymore. That, you know, one has to stay awake during the day and one has to be awake at night, so that, you know, there's no clashes, no fights, and Wanda and Carrot are like mediators between the two, and so they kind of come and go. So they're taking the Straw Hats over to Cat Viper to see him, and as they're on their way, Brook and Nami start to tell the story of what happened to Sanji. So because Peckham's, one of Big Mom's crew that we met in Fishman Island, is a mink, he knew how to get to Zou. So their ship arrived at Zou, and he and Bege, is that how you say his name? Those two go on the island and go to confront Sanji and everybody else. But as they're approaching, Sanji asks Caesar what happened, like, why does Big Mom want him? Caesar ended up cheating Big Mom out of a lot of money and everything for research that just didn't go through. So of course Caesar's on the run from Big Mom. Him and Sanji's kind of banter is so funny because Sanji does not like him one bit, but Caesar's like, oh, we're bros now, right? We're bros. You wouldn't sell me out. And Sanji's like, when did we become friends? Like, get away from me. And Sanji's always threatening him with like the heart and everything. It's so funny. I love it because it's good. It's good. Something I really liked was seeing Sanji really just kind of like take charge in absence of the captain and the first mate, Luffy and Zoro, in absence of those two, he stepped up as like the one who's in that next step up. It could have been Nami or Brook, but Sanji was the one to step up and kind of take charge, acting as like, not acting kind of as a captain in place of Luffy, since Luffy wasn't there. He was able to take on that responsibility of saying, okay, we're gonna go talk to them, we're gonna negotiate, because we don't want to make this place a battleground, because they've already been through enough pain. We need to settle this elsewhere. Brook, I want you to come with me as backup just in case. And the seriousness that Sanji exudes in this arc was something I was so happy to see, because when Sanji is serious and you get to see him display all of his critical thinking skills, because he is so smart. We've seen it since he first joined up, and like even like from Alabasta with the whole Mr. Prince thing, with the whole Mr. Prince thing, and then like even in Skypiea with how he destroyed Nell's ship, and in Water 7, in his lobby. Like, he's always been so smart and methodical, and he has these very, very, very good critical thinking skills that I needed to be put on display again, because we haven't seen it too much since Time Skip, and we got to see it again here, which I was so happy with, because I love my boy. I love him. And I love to see him shine, even though it hurts to see him shine because of what's happening now. But I love to see him take charge and try to take care of everybody in this way. And when he gets to Peckham's and Bege, I really need to know how to say his name. When he gets to them, Peckham's ends up thanking Sanji and being very grateful to them, because that's his homeland and the Straw Hats saved him. So Peckham's was so grateful for them and couldn't see them as enemies at that point because of the great debt that he owed. Well, Bege didn't really like that, and he shoots Peckham several times and ends up forcing Sanji and everybody else to come inside his castle, because of the devil fruit that he has. He can take people inside his body, and he's like, hey, y'all are gonna come here or else this will get really messy and we're gonna talk. Really forces Sanji's hand. They all go inside, including like Nami and all of them. They all go in to have this discussion where it turns out Sanji's been invited to a tea party from Big Mom, which isn't really an invitation, it's more of a summons, because it's Sanji's wedding to Big Mom's daughter Pudding, and Sanji as the third son of the Vinsmoke family. Sanji's royalty. That puts a whole new level of meaning to his whole Mr. Prince gimmick in Alabasta, and the whole thing of, you know, him saying it on Jaya that, you know, oh, well, I'm from the North Blue, and they just left it there, and I've been wondering about Sanji's family and his origins ever since, because it's never been touched upon ever since then, and then now we just get this massive drop that he's from this, like, royal family, he's the third son, and he's, like, from this family of, like, killers and manufacturers of like, weapons and stuff? What? There's so many implications to this, because, like, that means Sanji ran away as a child, like, younger than when we saw him with Zeph, like, with his backstory with Zeph, because he hadn't even met Zeph before then. So somehow little baby Sanji ran away from the North Blue, crossed the red line into the East Blue as a child, which I had thought that's what happened when we got that information in Jaya, but it's just like the magnitude of that, knowing like his family is like this like royalty in a sense, like how did he like, if his family is that big and that important and like they're that well known that even, you know, hearing Vinsmoke has Brooke and Nami being like Vinsmoke, and then you get Germa 66, which what is that, because we don't get an explanation on what that is. I know we're gonna get one soon, but like Nami is like horrified at the aspect of Germa 66 and is like, no, 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 that's not real, those are just rumors. And you know, Gang over here is saying no, they're real. If it's a family of killers that well known and that just people are so afraid of them, how did Sanji as a child escape? How did he run away? They must be horrible, because Sanji's reaction to hearing his family like talk about his family is just instant anger. He is instantly angry. You can see it on every expression that we get from him, that he is just angry that his past is being brought up, that his family is being mentioned, that this is happening to him now. And why is it happening now? Is it having something to do with him getting like this high bounty? Is it something to do with him having these powers in his legs or something, and he can like summon fire and everything? Is it something to do with how strong he's getting and his family sees how well known he is, and they're like, oh well, we want him back, so we're gonna drag him back through this political marriage with Big Mom and force his hand, because he can't really refuse, because if he refuses, somebody close to him could die. It could be Zeph, it could be one of the Straw Hats, it could be someone else that he cares about. They could get hurt, and not hurt, they could be killed and sent to Sanji as like this warning or this consequence if he were to refuse. Who is Sanji? I have so many questions, but seeing Sanji so like just angry to the point that he was, it was just like this very, very quiet anger. Like he wasn't yelling, he wasn't shouting or snapping at everybody. He was just like, you could just see the fury on his face, but he wasn't reacting to that anger. Just seeing him just so angry just at the mention of his family and what they are doing hurts me. And then seeing how he responds to that, seeing his response to everything happening, and then his loyalty to Luffy. His loyalty to Luffy, and him looking this gang guy right in the eye, saying Luffy will be the king of the pirates. Luffy is the man who's going to be king of the pirates. Marking his place not only against Big Mom, but against his family, who is in liege with Big Mom. And putting that division there, being like, no, this is who I'm following, and this is who I believe in. But it not being enough to make what is happening stop. And it's like all his dreams, this faith in Luffy means nothing to Big Mom, to his family, to what the situation is, and it's not enough to stop it because he doesn't have a choice. That is just crushing. And then him, after he says that, him being threatened with, you know, the threat of what could happen should he refuse, and then him calmly asking for a piece of paper to write a letter to Luffy and the others, and that smile on his face as he's doing that just breaks my heart, because he knows what's gonna happen. He knows what he's doing by agreeing to go with them. I don't know what plan he has, if he has a plan, but him just sitting there agreeing to go, writing this letter, I'm hurt. I am very hurt. And he gives this letter to Nami, and when he says, please believe when I say I didn't mean to keep any of this from you. But as Sanji is giving them all hugs, and he's like, there's someone outside, now go. And he pushes them all out. He frees them trapping himself inside, but letting his crew, letting the people he cares about go. And then Sanji, who doesn't use his hands for anything other than cooking, grabs a gun and puts it to Caesar to start threatening them. That's how serious this situation is, because Sanji never uses his hands for anything besides cooking. That's one of the core principles that he has. He doesn't use his hands, and this situation makes him easily belay that to grab a gun to start threatening them so that his crew can go, so that the people he loves can escape. He's willing to use his hands in order for the people he loves to escape. I love Sanji. And as he's threatening him because he knows he can only be taken alive because his family wants him alive. He knows that Gang and the rest of them cannot hurt him. They cannot do anything to Sanji, so they have to listen to him now. And he turns it on them to force their hand so that they listen to him, so that they don't go after Nami and the others. And it's so sad when Nami is begging Sanji for an explanation, and that smile he gives Nami when he just smiles and says, "I'll be back. So tell them that. Tell them I'll be back." And then he's gone. I'm so hurt and so mad, but I know we're on our way to get Sanji back. So I'm just... That's the end of that flashback, and we get back to the present, and Luffy, such a comic relief. I really needed that. He's like, "Oh, well, so Sanji's getting married? I guess we're gonna have another person on our crew then." Just having a whole casual conversation, not concerned that Sanji's getting married. He's just like, "Oh, well, then we'll just have someone else on our crew," not understanding like the full consequence of what Sanji leaving means. I do love, in the midst of all this discussion, it is Zoro who is trying to focus them on their current situation at hand, saying like, "No, like, Sanji knows what he's doing. We have to focus on Kaido. We are at a direct crash course to Kaido because of these steps that we have taken so far. We have angered one of the emperors of the sea." And he's like, he's not far off anymore. He's right here. We are to face him next, essentially. And that's what we need to be focusing on. But, of course, Zoro insults Sanji in it because of Sanji's decision to leave. And I do like that Nami is the one to defend Sanji. She stands up for him and yells at Zoro for his tactlessness. And I love when Zoro's like, "It's just small-time business. Like, it's just a small affair," like with Sanji's situation. And I do like how Nami says, "You don't get to say how important other people's problems are." Love that. Love that. And then that's when Luffy's like, "Okay, let's just go ask Sanji. We're gonna go get him back," which, thank you. Do not let him go off on his own. Do not let him be by himself, because I'm very afraid for him. I know Sanji can take care of himself, but I have a bad feeling. So I need them to go after my boy. They go to see Peckham's, who is recovering, and he explains the consequences of Sanji leaving, how if Sanji gets married to Pudding, that's it. Like, he's leaving these Straw Hats permanently. He will no longer be in league with these Straw Hats. And Luffy gets furious upon hearing this. And I love to see him get so protective over Sanji as soon as he realizes how serious the situation is. But Luffy is determined to get Peckham's to go to Big Mom. And that is when we had an introduction to Cat Viper before, but Cat Viper is a hoot. He is so funny. He is so cat-like and playful. He looks super intimidating, but he's just so fun to be around. I really like him. I love Dogstorm too. I love both of them. They're both really fun characters that we got introduced to. They're so funny. And Law rejoins at this point to see all the shenanigans happening, learns about Sanji, but also Law has to bring along his crew because it's time for an official introduction, and he kind of comes to brag about his crew a little bit, introduces them to Luffy and everything. And once Law rejoins and is caught up to speed about what's happening with Sanji, Cat Viper and Dogstorm meeting again and kind of starting to get into an argument when Kinemon and Kanjuro are coming, and I think it's so funny that because they think the minks are so appalled at the idea of samurai because of the whole Raizo situation that being in league with them, it would be a horrible idea. They can't let them know that they're like allianced with them or anything, and Kinemon and Kanjuro go out anyways. They can't stop them. I think it's so funny how like the three older ones are like, oh well, we'll keep an eye out, and they end up falling asleep and the samurai walk right past them. It's so funny. But they go up and confront Cat Viper and Dogstorm, and as soon as they reveal who they are, the minks fall to the ground and announce that Raizo is safe. Raizo is alive and well. These minks, unparalleled loyalty. Like, loyalty is such a huge thing for a lot of people in this world. In One Piece, it is a very big theme in One Piece, but by golly, the ultimate loyalty that these minks have is just insane, ridiculously insane. Unparalleled loyalty. To go through that much pain to make us think that they suffered all of that not knowing anything about Raizo, to going from knowing that they're incredible heroes that suffered through all of this because they would not turn their back on one of their friends, that they would not turn him in for anything. That reveal was crazy. Absolutely insane. That was a plot twist of a plot twist. I was not expecting that at all. And then you get Cat Viper and Dogstorm finally coming a truce because of Momo, and Momo is this lord from Wano. He is the heir of Wano, which makes so much sense with why Doflamingo wanted him and everything, and the whole interest with Kaido. It's not just because of the devil fruit he took, it's so much more. And we go up into this whale tree once all of this is figured out, and we find Raizo, who they had to chain up to keep hidden, to keep safe, so he wouldn't interfere. And Raizo is so distressed over everything that the minks have done because they would bring him food and he'd just see them injured and more injured day after day, but they wouldn't let him do anything, and they were defending him this entire time while keeping him safe and locked away from the fight. I love these minks. I do. I really, really love these minks. But we get some of the, once Raizo is unlocked from his change, we get a lot of ninja shenanigans because all of the guys have these thoughts of ninjas and what they are and what they do, and so they're like going to Raizo with all these requests. And I think it's so funny that at first Raizo was like, ninjas are not like this at all, like stop doing this to me. But the more that like they're requesting, and then he can't say no to them as they're asking all these requests, I think it's so funny because even Law chimes in, even though it's in a very low voice. He's just like, show me this. Like amidst everybody else yelling, and it just goes back to that childish part of Law that I was talking about earlier. I think it's so funny because he's still a boy, he's still a guy, he's still gonna love all these things that all the others do, and it's so funny. I love it. I love their interactions, and Raizo shows off for them. It's so great. The samurai, we see how grateful they are to the minks, seeing the destruction of their land and what all they did to protect them, to protect their secrets. As just, and the minks have a very long history with the samurai, which is insane. The minks are so important to this story, so important because there's so much to cover here. This is already going to be a really long review. My goodness. Okay, I'll speed things up a little bit here. We get a poneglyph, a red poneglyph, which is one of 4 road poneglyphs that lead to Raftel, that points to Raftel and potentially the One Piece. I mean, we're finally getting more grasp on the One Piece and the end destination. I'm so excited. And there's one in the whale on Zou that is known, and that's why the two minks are there to protect it, because these samurai, Momo's family specifically, Momo's legacy and his dynasty were the ones who created the poneglyphs, which means they are connected to the ancient history. They created the poneglyphs, they wrote on it, they knew the meaning of it, they knew how to translate it, and it's been passed down generation, but it gets cut off by Momo because of his situation with his parents and what happened to Odin. And I'll get into Odin in a second, but Odin died. From what they're saying, it almost sounds like he was boiled to death, because they're like, he said like, I am Odin, I was born to boil, unless he was being metaphorical. But then they're saying that he sacrificed himself to save everybody. So was he like boiled over something in order to like give them a chance to go or something? I don't know. But that's my working theory on Odin. But Odin, because Odin died, Momo didn't get a chance to learn the full part of the history and the whole thing with the poneglyphs. Of course, it can't ever be that easy. But Odin rode with Roger, with Goldie Roger. Not only that, Cat Viper and Dogstorm accompanied him, because that was their history. Like, the minks have always been that loyal to the samurai and to that family, and Dogstorm and Cat Viper were with Odin. They knew Roger, they knew Whitebeard, they knew Shanks and Rayleigh and Crocus and Tom and all of these other really important people. Like, what? I'm shook. And these road poneglyphs can be read by Robin, of course, because she knows how to read them. And it's the four road poneglyphs point to a single location, like X marks the spot. It's kind of cool. It's a really nice twist on that trope that leads to Raftel, and one is unknown, which, who's gonna find it? Where is it gonna be? Is it gonna be in a place we've already been to and we have to somehow go back, or is it somewhere we still haven't seen before? That's gonna be interesting. But the other two are in the hands of Big Mom and Kaido, which Luffy's like, all right, cool, I had beef with them anyways, we're gonna fight them anyways, let's go. And I think it's so funny that Luffy is so down to steal these poneglyphs, to get the readings off of them, but is so bummed and disappointed when he learns that he doesn't have to steal them, that they just have to get a reading off of them. It's so funny. His face when he realizes that they're like, no, you don't have to steal it. He looks so disappointed. It's so funny. And I love that Dogstorm, I love this Robin moment. Whenever Dogstorm turns to Robin and he's like, well, I'm worried for you because, you know, people, you're in danger of being able to read these poneglyphs and everything. And Robin says, I don't mind. After all, I've got very powerful friends who will protect me. The growth that Robin has had is just phenomenal. I love her so much. She's so confident, not just in herself now, but in the people around her. You love to see it. You love to see the growth. But after that's when we learn more about Odin and everything, but we get the information that Kaido is in Wano, that he has pretty much held Wano in captivity now, that there's so much unease, and that Wano is a very isolated place now because of Kaido's reign there. And because of Kaido and the Shogun, Momo has lost both of his parents. Both his dad and his mother has been killed because of them. The wish of the samurai and the minks is open Wano's borders. They want the borders of Wano to be opened, to be free. They want Kaido gone. They want Luffy and Law's help to free Wano from Kaido's rule, which is very similar to what we've been seeing, and of course Luffy's gonna do it. Of course Luffy's gonna do it. But Luffy says no. Luffy says no to them because he looks to Momo and says, are you just a figurehead or what? Aren't you the one, like, aren't you this heir, this person in control? Speak for yourself. Speak your mind on what you want. Tell me what you want. And Momo looks at Luffy and says, I want to defeat Kaido. And that's all Luffy needs to hear. And he makes an alliance with Momo, and he sticks out his hand and he's like, okay, yeah, let's do it. I love that so much because Luffy just, he knows people. He just knows people, and I love that so much. Note, before they were talking about this, Dogstorm mentioned that the minks had an ace up their sleeve. I have a theory. I know it's probably going to be wrong. I know it's wrong, but I have a theory on what that ace up their sleeve is in relation to what's coming up. But yes, after Luffy makes the alliance, I love how Law's just like, well, what about us? And he's like, oh, well, you're okay with it, right? He's like, yeah, but still. Law is so funny. He's like that. He's like a friend. He's like, hey, don't forget about me. And then Luffy's like, oh, well, since we're an alliance, we're all friends. And Law's like, no, that's not how this works. It's so funny. When is Law gonna admit that Luffy is his friend? That's gonna be a big moment when he's like, yes, Straw Hat is my friend. When is that gonna happen? It better not be when Law is in mortal danger again, or else I'm going to be very sad. But I'm waiting for that moment. And that's when, you know, the whole topic of, well, Luffy needs to get Sanji back, so if they can hold off until they get Sanji back, because Luffy's faith in Sanji, I love it. He's like, Sanji is worth 1,000 people on your crew. I love that. And then you have Zoro's little like self-reassurance competitive side in the background. He's like, well, then I'm worth 2,000, and Nami's just like, yeah, okay, sure. It's so funny. And then we get Cat Viper saying that he wants to go after Marco. He wants to scout Marco to kind of get him to join his cause, because they were on good relations with Whitebeard and the Whitebeard Pirates and that whole situation. And Luffy's trying to remember who Marco was, and then Robin just being like, the pineapple guy, and he's like, oh yeah. So I love Robin and Luffy's dynamic. It is so great. And then everybody's starting to gear up for like plans of what they're gonna do, and like the groups separating, which we're separating again, which is fine, I guess. I'm not happy with it, but it's fine. But then Jack is coming back and tries to attack Zunesha, the giant elephant who is walking. His name is Zunesha. And Luffy and Momo hear Zunesha's voice. None of the other samurai can hear it. None of the minks can hear it. Nobody else can hear it. But Luffy and Momo hear Zunesha's voice, and Zunesha is begging them to give the order to let him attack just this one time, because he was put under a curse hundreds of years ago to just walk, that he was cursed to just walk and walk and walk forever. Who holds the power to order Zunesha, this ginormous elephant? Who holds the power to order him to do something like that? My first thought is Joy Boy, or someone like Joy Boy, because we don't know who Joy Boy is. We don't know like how powerful or big or strong or anything like that. We have nothing to know. We don't know anything about him. This goes along with one of my theories. I'm about to get to it. But Luffy cannot communicate with Zunesha yet. So Luffy cannot get the order, but Momo can. Momo can talk to Zunesha and give him the order to attack, and Zunesha does, and he just destroys Jack with one swoop. Like, this elephant, just like the magnitude of how strong he was, and yet he's just cursed to just sit here and walk because of somebody either stronger than him or somebody he was in allegiance with, like under, like someone who was like his master or something. Zunesha's so cool. He's so strong. Okay. Theory time. My tinfoil hat is too far away, but okay. What makes somebody qualified to hear the voices? Because, you know, they said that Goldie, Roger, and Odin could hear the voices, but what made them be able to hear the voices? Because there's a lot of possibilities that could possibly qualify someone to hear these voices. It could be the type of devil fruit somebody has. It could be associated with the will of D. and like maybe that whole like ancestry, that group of people, it could be associated with that. It could be associated with hockey, but then we don't really know anything about Momo having hockey, so like that was or it could be something else that we don't really know yet. But this is where I can't remember, what type of devil fruit does Luffy have? Because Momo is a Zoan, so maybe that could like give like a possible explanation. But there's several other Zoans out there, so I don't. And Roger wasn't a Zoan, but we don't. Did Roger even have a devil fruit? We don't even know this. We don't know enough information. We don't know what you know what Odin was like. If he like, we don't know if he was part of the Will of D. We don't know anything about him, or if he had a devil fruit or hockey or anything else. But does the type of devil fruit like impact something like that, or is it just like those who have devil fruits maybe are more apt to hear these voices, or some? No, I don't think that makes sense. But there's something that qualifies these people to hear their voices, and I think I have a more solid theory than the other parts. Here's my more solid theory on that. That was just me kind of spitballing before. Here's the actual theory. Momo is an ancient weapon like Shirahoshi, because Shirahoshi could hear the voices of the Neptunians, something that nobody else could seem to hear except a certain amount of people like Roger or Luffy, aka Luffy. Luffy could hear them, he can't quite communicate with them, but he can hear these voices. And like we learned in Fishman Island with the whole Noah's Ark and the Neptunians pulling Noah's Ark, that they were waiting on somebody to guide Shirahoshi, who was Joy Boy, and you know, maybe Luffy is like this descendant of Joy Boy, so it's just like maybe he's in that line, because we don't know how old Joy Boy was. We don't know how much how far apart that was. Luffy could very well be a descendant of Joy Boy, and that's why he can hear the voices of all these like great animals. And maybe Momo is an ancient weapon that his purpose is to guide Zunesha. And maybe the previous ancient weapon was the one who told Zunesha to keep walking, because as Chopper says later, as they're fixing Zunesha's wounds on his leg from Jack, Chopper says, "What are you walking towards? Like, all this time you are walking, but what are you walking toward?" So if he's walking towards something, that means maybe the ancient weapon before Momo had a purpose of saying, you need to be walking this way or something, and soon a descendant, the next one will lead you to your destination, will lead you to where you are needed in that moment, and there will be one who comes to guide the ancient weapon. Luffy. The Joy Boy parallels are there from Fishman Island. Someone will come to lead him. It matches that. Maybe it was Joy Boy who gave that order, maybe it was the ancient weapon who gave that order to Zunesha, but somebody who is in control of that gave that order. And I think that somebody who's going to be giving these orders, aka the descendant of Joy Boy, aka Luffy, will eventually, who can't hear these voices, he can't communicate with them yet. I say yet because I think Luffy is going to find a way, or something in the future is going to happen that is going to allow Luffy to communicate with these ancient creatures that very little people can communicate with. Something's gonna happen to where he can communicate with them. That he can't just hear them, he can talk to them. Something's gonna happen. I don't know what, but that's my working theory right now. And we've seen Luffy, he's aligning with these ancient weapons. He's already made this type of alliance with Shirahoshi. He's promised to come back to her, and you know, take her above ground and everything like that. And we actually see Shirahoshi this arc, which kind of draws it back a little bit. And if he's allying himself with these ancient weapons, and I could see why the government would be opposed to anybody having them, because a massive animal like Zunesha casually being able to destroy everything because of just the sheer size of him, and the order, like if he gets the order to destroy or gets the order to defend or attack, like And then like put the Neptunians on his side, like because Zunesha is big enough to walk in the water, those Neptunians could be. There's a lot. There's a lot. It's a lot. We know that one ancient weapon was that one from Water 7 at Eni's Lobby that Tom had, and if Tom was the architect on Roger's crew and he knew a lot of this stuff too, Tom could have known exactly what that ancient weapon was, or what Pluton. Yeah, Pluton. It could be like the third and final piece. I don't know. It could all connect. And the blueprints for it, the blueprints could have been for a ship, could potentially have been Noah's Ark. It could be something else that pertains to maybe something on Zou, or it could be something that we haven't gotten to yet because Pluton hasn't been brought up since then. But Frankie knows the blueprints because of course he's seen them. I have a lot of thoughts. There's so much going on. But yes, Momo might be an ancient weapon besides being an heir. Because, I mean, his family isn't, his lineage is the ones who created the poneglyphs. That has to mean something. And then Luffy, I'm convinced that him and Dragon are somehow descendants of Joy Boy. I mean, Dragon could end up playing a huge role in like a massive war that ends One Piece. I mean, because we've gotten hints of another war coming up from the end of Dressrosa. So I mean, Dragon could start playing a role with this. We don't know if Dragon hears the voices or not because Dragon is like very off to the side. But that's my theory. I think Luffy's gonna end up like having all these ancient weapons around him because these ancient weapons are gonna end up all being people that he befriends and he helps and protects, and they're gonna use their powers to help him in whatever war against the government, whatever uprising is going to be at the end of One Piece, to overthrow the world government and uncover the ancient history. That's my theory. Anyway. Separated into 4 groups. So there's a group that's going to Marco with Cat Viper. There's a group staying on Zou with like Momo and Dogstorm. There's a group going to Wano, which is Zoro, Law, and the Samurai, which I'm pretty sure that means that Zoro and probably Law are gonna learn more swordsmanship from the Samurai, which is gonna be really cool. And then you have the group with Luffy, Nami, Brook, and all that. And I think Usopp is going to Wano as well, yeah. And then Luffy's group is going to go after Big Mom to get Sanji back. So we're split into 4 groups. And Carrot ends up joining Luffy's group, even though Pedro and Peckham's is already on there. Carrot ends up going anyways because she wants to. It's kind of funny. I like her dynamic with the crew. It's going to be good. But as they're separating to go, we get information that the Reverie is almost upon us. I don't know. Was anybody else like super excited for the Reverie? Because I am. I am so excited about it. You get all of these huge names, both like nobles and royals. You see, we saw Vivi, we saw Shirahoshi, we saw Vivi's dad. Wanting to ask about the poneglyphs. We saw a lot of like the kings from, you know, Dressrosa, Viola, Rebecca. We saw what's his face, dude from Drum Kingdom with Kuroha. They're going. We get Wapple. Where's Wapple been? But apparently he may be on his way, I guess. We get stupid Stelly, whatever, yeah, Stelly from Sabo's past. We get him being reintroduced, but you have all of these people gearing up for the Reverie. I am so excited. I'm so ready to see the Reverie, but I will put the Reverie on hold if it means we're getting Sanji back first, because I need to see Sanji again. I need us to get Sanji back. But yes, the Reverie is coming. And the arc ends with like Luffy's group being in chaos without Sanji being there to cook, because for some reason they thought it was a good idea to let Luffy cook, and he started burning things down and the food looked absolutely atrocious. He cooked it all and they're just not in great shape. But then we get information on, I know it was kind of like at the beginning and then towards the end, but the Revolutionary Army, we get Sabo and Koala going back with Dragon and their conversation about the weapons from Dressrosa and kind of everything that's going on. Dragon wanted to summon all of the big dogs to come to, oh, I forgot where they were, but he wanted all of the big shots to come down, and then Burgess had somehow stowed away on the ship and called Blackbeard and caused this huge fight, and Baltigo, that's where they were saying. Baltigo was destroyed and it was in the papers, but because there was no names or anything, the Revolutionary Army did escape, but we don't know where they are now. I doubted that Blackbeard would be able to take down the Revolution Army. Yeah, no. Especially with how, like, mysterious Dragon is, there's no way that they would have done that. Especially, like, Sabo being back in the story, there's no way that Blackbeard would have gone to Sabo, because that would just be cruel. So we get that happening on the side, which is building up to something. I have no idea what, but it's going to be building up to something else. And then we get Sanji being on the ship headed to Big Mom, and his resolve, and just Sanji's resolve to use his hands for cooking and nothing else, despite what he had done earlier. And he's only thinking of his crew and thinking about how they must be missing his food by now, which is so sad. And it's like they are missing his food. But I mean, that's kind of where the arc ends, is Sanji's heading off to Big Mom and Luffy's going after him. That's Zou. This has been an incredible arc. I have so many theories. I absolutely love the minks. Their loyalty and dedication to the samurai, to Raizo, is just incredible. Absolutely incredible. You have the world building with the poneglyphs and the history of the minks and how involved they are with this world. I have a feeling that these minks might end up playing a very important part to the remainder of the story, not just like with their roles they're playing now, like even deeper than that, like perhaps even getting to the One Piece. Just their integration into this world and the history, what they've seen, what they've stood for, is so impactful that I know they're going to be playing a very important role later on, and I'm very excited to see that. And then besides the whole poneglyph situation, and then you get Zunesha and then the whole like build up to Kaido. We're going to Wano, but before we go to Wano, we're taking a side trip to get Sanji, because we can't leave my boy. We've got to get him back. I'm very nervous to see what happens in the next arc regarding Sanji. There's so much, because you know, everything with the Revolutionary Army and then the Reverie coming up. There's just so much build up for the future. I'm so excited. I loved this arc. It was a small arc, but I had a lot to say about it, as y'all can tell. I had a lot to say about it. Other than that, thank you all so much for watching this review. What are your thoughts on Zou? What do y'all think about this? From the minks to the poneglyphs to Momo to Odin and what he's done, what y'all think about him. Obviously, don't post spoilers below, because I haven't learned anything else about any of these people, so don't put spoilers, please. But what are your thoughts on Zou and like the implications that it has on the rest of the story and of One Piece? Because I'm starting to build a lot of theories because of this arc, and I'm so excited. But yes, I'm sure that's not the last we've seen of Jack, because apparently he can breathe underwater or something. I don't know if he was still alive. So he is coming back, I'm sure, and we'll be facing Big Mom soon, and we'll be facing Kaido soon. But other than that, thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to check out my schedule for October, because this is a big month. It's a big one. We got a lot to do here. Be sure to check that out. And other than that, I will see you next time, scholars. Bye!